Hello, welcome to another episode of Once Upon a Time in the Movies. This week, finally, the fourth and last chapter of the Conjuring saga arrived to cinemas, and this horror saga that it kind of revolutionized how horror movies were made in the 2010s, and let's talk about it. First, this fourth installment is called The Conjuring 4, The Last Rites, or Last Rites only. And a little context, this is the fourth movie in the main saga of the Ed and Lorraine Warren, the paranormal investigators, based on real-life people. Ed and Lorraine Warren really existed, and well, it is worth mentioning that the first Conjuring movie gave birth to spin-offs, and as the Conjuring movies progress, there start being more spin-off movies like Annabelle, The Nun, The Curse of La Llorona, but we are not talking about it. And these movies are, but the main saga that unites them all is The Conjuring, which is the story about Ed and Lorraine Warren even when they have had small appearances like in Annabelle 3 Comes Home. The most important thing has always been there. The family is being haunted, always change, but Ed and Lorraine Warren, these paranormal investigators, real-life paranormal investigators, are the center and the core of these movies. Also, I should say that I am a James Wan fan. James Wan is the director behind the first two movies. He also directed other horror movies like Malignant, also directed the first Saw movie, the first two Insidious movies, and he practically redefined what horror looks like in the beginning of the 2000s and 2010s. He also directed the Aquaman movies and the best Fast and Furious movie, the seventh one. So he's a pretty versatile director, and he's known for his really wild camera movements that I like. Their films are always very striking, and he brought that to the first two Conjuring movies, which is a shame that he stopped directing this in the third installment. He remained only as a producer with Peter Safran, and Michael Chavez stepped up to direct that movie and this fourth one. Here comes something very interesting, because there's a lot of gossip that I have managed to keep for being following, and the thing is that I was at first really scared for the third movie because James Wan was not directing it. The Devil Made Me Do It, but it managed to greatly surprise me. But what worried me the most at the moment was that Michael Chavez was directing, who is the one who directed The Curse of La Llorona, a very boring and quite bad movie that it is supposed to be in this universe, or at least that's how it was marketed. But the truth is that Peter Safran was not involved, which is one of the main creative heads of this universe. So it becomes like a little tension of if that movie is part or not part of the Conjuring universe. But James Wan said that he liked working with Chavez. I don't know why. And then he stepped up as director of The Conjuring 3, which James Wan said that he was very close, like a producer, and the movie still had pretty cool shots, pretty cool scenes, a pretty original and catching premise, and I believe that was James Wan's doing, because James Wan said and recently demanded Warner Bros. After they pulled back Aquaman 2, because he said that his contract stipulated that he could not direct any movie in between having directed Aquaman 2 and it being premiered, so it was delayed 2 years. So this, according to James Wan, caused for him to lose a lot of jobs, which he does direct a lot of movies in a very short time, so I can believe that. But the most interesting thing is that it was during this time when The Conjuring 3, The Devil Make Me Do It, came to fruition. And I believe that what James Wan did was was he practically directed and just put Michael Chavez on the name only, and the reason I believe this is that it still has a lot of James Wan elements and James Wan things to look forward, while other Michael Chavez movies doesn't have anything like that. And after The Conjuring 3, Michael Chavez directed The Nun 2, which is also a very bad movie. Astonishingly bad movie, I will say. And it is like, why when Michael Chavez directs on The Conjuring, when he's being supervised up close by James Wan, he makes a compelling and pretty cool movie, but when he's on his own, he makes something really forgettable. And so it becomes really interesting, this dynamic of the director. And now that The Last Rites came to cinemas, I was hoping that this dynamic will still the same, where it will be really compelling, because it was actually just like a Michael Chavez film in name, and but it seems like it doesn't. At the end, Michael Chavez is not to be harsh on him, but he's a very plain director. He doesn't have any particular style and doesn't have any like all the things like reference to Psycho or The Exorcist that were in The Conjuring 3, that will make me do it, are things that are more present in James Wan cinema than in Michael Chavez cinema. So he's such a bland director that I believe could be easily manipulated by the producer, in this case James Wan, and that's why he likes to working with him, because he can do whatever he wants. And so I was hoping that this could be also something like that helps to get James Wan to close his saga, but this really wasn't that, and it wasn't as bad as The Curse of La Llorona or The Nun 2, but it is, but still, The Conjuring 4: The Last Rites is still a pretty low. It's the lowest and more less competent film in the saga. It is a horror movie, of course, and it plays with the genre, the genre of the haunted house movie, where a family is haunted by a ghost in their house. And what the Conjuring universe, or at least this saga, has been very good at doing is that it subverts expectations, because it is normally a ghost hunting them, and here there are multiple ghosts in each house, and they are always controlled by a demon. So it is a demon controlling ghosts, which is something different from the genre and makes this feel more than just a ghost movie. It also feels like a possessions movie, and so it mixtures these haunted houses in addition with possession movies, and it does pretty well, I will say. Also, also, another thing is that these movies are also very much focused on the main emotion of these movies is based on the characters of Lorraine and Ed Warren, which are the investigators that always helps the families that are being haunted. So when normally the movies, the haunted house movies, are about the family who is experiencing the events, here is the opposite. Here is here these movies are of the investigators that are helping these families, and the way they help these families helps develop these characters. And so even when each movie is about a different case, this allows to have a consistent characters who we explored, or the movies explore different aspects of their characters, and it feels actually like a saga or like continuation. And in that way, it subverts really effectively the main tropes of these kind of flicks. Also, the style is dark, stylized with a lot of color lights in the movies and in the picture, and a lot of color lights in the cinematography. It is real dark, and the horror is based on the scare jumps, which is basically the fact of this that many people say is overused and cheap way of creating terror, of showing you a scary image with a loud sound in the screen, and they have a point. It's an easy way to get scares, but James Wan perfected it and accompanied with atmosphere, and so it became really haunting movies. At the beginning of this fourth movie, we start with normally these movies start always with a case which is not the main case of the movie, but it is somewhat connected to the main case. And in this one, it starts with a flashback of Ed and Lorraine Warren when they are young, and Lorraine is pregnant of her daughter, which we have seen in multiple of the earlier movies of The Conjuring, and also she is the protagonist of Annabelle Comes Home, and the third Annabelle installment. And at the beginning, everything runs about this family, which is which establishes that the emotional core of the movie is these two characters, and Lorraine Warren with her daughter, which is something that has not been explored in the previous movies. And here is really interesting because we get some new aspects of the character, like the daughter can see ghosts and have visions like her mother, and also is able to, well, when she was born, she was born dead, and through praying, I believe, she was brought up to life, and since dead, because of what the Ed and Lorraine were doing with, in the first case, which involved a mirror, they are a demon is wanting to claim this daughter for his own, and so it works pretty effectively that in this first scene we don't see the design of the demon, because it creates expectation for us who wants to see it further in the movie. But as well, at the same time, it's a kind of a bummer or disadvantage of this movie that it goes that the most of these scenes of the prologue where they are young doesn't get anywhere, and they are cut before they come to a resolution, so it's kind of like incomplete, and you don't get a real sense of what's happening or what is the importance of this. And I just have to say that these young versions of Ed and Lorraine Warren are other actors playing these roles, instead of having Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga being de-aged digitally. That it's something that Hollywood doesn't do anymore, but it is so refreshing, and it's way less creepy, so thanks for that. Also, another thing that I liked about the Conjuring movies, especially the second one and a little less on the third, but still, is the image, the cinematography. The second is done by Don Burgess, and the third one by Michael Burgess, which are really stylized cinematography with bright yellow lights that, well, the second is bright yellow lights that involve and that suck everything that it is on the screen and tainted it blue, and it's like really uncomfortable looking. But the third movie, and also this one, this fourth installment, what they do is everything is like in warm colors, like in reddish, orange, yellowish colors, yellowish lights inside the house, and always the backlights, the lights that are getting through windows are the ones yellow that feel more the ones bluish or more cold lights, which makes it feel which creates that the movie is always this contrast between the warm and hellish and aggressive place that it is that is the haunted house, and the more cold and fierce place that it is the outside of the house. And I should say that I really like this contrast and how it works. What I don't like is that this stylized photography by Burgess is achieved very well. He's a very good cinematographer. The images he manages to create are really astonishing, but here they changed the cinematographer, and this new cinematography clearly clearly does a good job. I mean, the movie looks great in some scenes, but in some other feels uninspired, and especially he doesn't feel to have the experience to pull up some of these stylized aesthetic, because what I believe is the most dangerous thing about this stylized aesthetic in the cinematography is that it is really hard to maintain comprehensible what it is on a screen, and Burgess always manages to keep it very clear what it is on the screen. And in this movie there are a couple of shots where you are not understanding actually what you are seeing, that it just feels like a black matter with with a blue silhouette, and you are not really understanding. And I believe that it is the Conjuring movie with the more inexperienced cinematographer, and at least on the stylized type of cinematography these movies are known for, and it makes it shows. Also, in regarding image, things that are very present in the Conjuring universe, or in the Conjuring's main saga, is that the camera loves to fly and to be flying through the scenes and do wild and over the top movements. Like the camera isn't afraid of moving and making you feel dizzy or changing the way that normally these kind of movies are shot. And James Wan is really good at doing this. The way he moves the camera he's very creative in how moving the camera. And also another signature of his style is that the first time he introduces the haunted family before the house is haunted, he always introduces it with a long shot where the camera is just flying through the house, and you see all the characters and their dynamics and how they work, how they interact with one another, and the movie. And this is a very effective, visually striking, and a simple, or well, not really simple, but a very effective way, I would say, to give you a sense of how these families work. And here the movie does the same, but of course isn't done as masterfully as James Wan has perfected it over his career. On the sound, it is consistent with the saga. It is very effective. It works. Also, another thing that always happens in the Conjuring movies is that at first the families are these very loudly, almost, at least for my taste, awful families where they are always talking, everyone is fighting over each other, and it is such a mess, and everyone's talking over each other, everyone's screaming. And as the movie progresses, and when the ghost started haunting the family, everyone became more silent, more contained, and this creates this opposition. And by contrast, it makes it feel like these ghosts are really hurting and harming this family. And here this is present as well. Another thing is that during the credits, the Conjuring movies always presents this overcharged, very heavy noise that gives you this chilling and uncomfortable feeling, and here is also present. On the montage editing side, it is pretty normal, pretty standard. I would say that the two main things I found conflicting about this is that there are some record errors. A record is when you make a cut in a movie, and in the first shot you end it with the character doing a movement, and in the next one the character continues doing that movement, so it becomes seamless that there was a cut, that the actor is playing a different scene with the camera in another place and different lighting. And so what happens here, for example, is that they don't care about record. So there is a scene especially uncomfortable at the beginning where Lorraine is investigating an attic, and she's just she's seeing something, and she hears something in the back of her, and so she turns. And in the next shot, we see a silhouette from another perspective walking, and and because Lorraine wasn't walking in the previous scene, you are confused by who is this silhouette for, or who is the owner of the silhouette, and it turns out it is Lorraine's who was walking, but because the previous shot doesn't show me that, and then the camera shifts position and breaks a rule of where you put the camera to not spatially disconcert the audience. It creates this sensation where then we are in another place and with another person who is now walking, and it could be fixed by a better record choice where Lorraine starts walking on the previous shot. So there's this kind of errors which really hurt the experience and just break you momentarily out of the experience. Also, another thing that I noticed is that Michael Chavez takes a different approach to scare jumps that James Wan, where he hides the reveal. I think that made James Wan's scare jump so effective is that when he shows the scary image, that's not the scare, and the characters see the scary images and see the scary stuff, and it's just there, and they have to confront it somewhat. In the second Conjuring movie, there is this amazing scene of the nun just standing in the end of the corridor and walking to a room where Lorraine has to follow her, or him because it's a demon, and when normally the scare will come from the nun shouting at you or doing something creepy, here the nun is, you have to see it and you have to confront it. And this is what James Wan does, that he doesn't hide away of showing you these things that you must be impacted by. And Michael Chavez, on the contrary, what he does is that when he's about to show you the scary thing, he cuts away to the character's reaction or something, and then this supposedly creates expectation for you, and then it cuts immediately to the monster or the scary stuff, and it is ended up there. And so it is not as effective. Like you know that the monster or the thing is already there, but you are not forced to confront it. You are still hiding away from it, and this maybe gives more shock value to the image, but at the same time it doesn't work to build tension, which I believe it's a more sophisticated and more lasting, frightening and atmospheric sensation. So here in the movie, it constantly cuts away, and it is just really overwhelming. On regard to the drama and the characters, this is really sad that the haunted house family is the one with less development in the saga. There are long portions of the movie where they don't even appear. And once the Warrens present with them, there is this kid of the family who acts really weirdly, makes these weird like mimics, but it is never explain why she does that or what's the purpose of this. And so it feels like something without a reason or purpose, and it's like you have this setup but you'd never pay off. Like the movie presents you this aspect that makes you believe that there's something wrong with this kid, and then there's nothing wrong. She just acts weird for no reason, and it's like, why would you do that? Nonetheless, what makes this movie work and all the Conjuring movies is that the emotional core is always on Ed and Lorraine Warren, and this time with her daughter is there caring for their daughter. But at the same time, the haunted family is the family with the less development. So when in the other movies they manage to, you really want them to exorcise and get the demon out. Here you doesn't feel the need to have that. You can just have the Warrens leave, and that will work in the emotionally core. And I believe that this works mostly because of the work carried by the previous films on the Ed and Lorraine Warren's relationship and characters, because in this film the characters betray themselves. Like Ed is always shown to be this guy who wants and loves investigating and is willing to do it, even putting his own life on the line, and even broken promises that he makes to Lorraine, and here he's just like following Lorraine's lead, and it doesn't feel like how he works. And Lorraine is someone who always is very in touch with this magical or supernatural aspect of herself, and here, instead of showing how to control it or teaching her daughter how to control it, which is something that we never see in the previous movies, even when one is protagonized and the main character is the daughter, and here it is said that she has this since she was a kid. Here it is very weird that here Lorraine tells her to hide it and close this aspect of her, when her whole character always has been to learn to accept it and to be willing to use it to help others. And so it is really uncomfortable, I will say. Also, there are empty reference to The Shining. This doesn't have anything to do with this, but I just had to mention. Also, one of the best things this movie does is that it starts with after the prologue, it starts with a lecture of the Warrens, which turn out to be empty and with people mocking them, which is really effective because on the first movie they have a lecture full of people and people are interested, and here to show this new status quo does it in a great way. And I believe that what for me was the biggest turndown was that the movie never showed the demon. Like every movie there is always this minor ghost, but at the end they are all controlled by a demon, which is or by this more powerful force. And here this demon never appears, and we see that three ghosts that the demon is controlled, but the demon is only presented as a floating mirror, which isn't quite scaring. I will say that it could be disturbing in the Ring kind of way, which here isn't because it is not even well integrating lighting wise to the scene. But regarding of that, I wanted to see this demon that we were promised at the beginning of how was this demon who wanted the soul of the kid, and we didn't get it. We got a flying mirror, which is quite ridiculously, especially because the movie isn't that really scary. And the same goes with Annabelle. Like I understand that because of Annabelle Comes Home, the third installment, which is protagonized by the Warren's daughter. Here she's haunted by Annabelle, but at some point it appears like the doll there, and it transforms into a giant that starts hunting her through the house, and it is just it becomes ridicule more than it is scary. So it is just it got me jiggling in the theater. So I think that they have a serious problem with the designs or the lack of designs in this film that wasn't something present in the previous movies. Also, there are weird things during the plot and storytelling, like for example, the main antagonistic force, because on the movies there's always this thing that it is linked to the demon or to the ghost, and in this case it is this mirror, which it disappears for a long portion of the movie. Like most of the runtime, the mirror isn't anywhere to be seen, and if we add that to the fact that we spent a lot of time of the Warrens just having their life and having this thing for her daughter getting married or getting engaged, it is this makes that the whole movie feels disconnected. Like, why aren't the Warrens going to help, or when are they going to do it? Because until they get involved, almost already on the third act, we have been an hour and a half of just seeing drama between them, and doesn't doing anything to get the plot moving forward. And it is it's not boring because you already care from the characters from the movies before, but it is just not compelling story wise. And also this make it feel like there's no direction in the movie. And also another thing that I didn't like is that the prologue doesn't, in all the other movies, the prologue or the mystery of the prologue is kind of resolved on itself, and here it isn't. Here it is open, and the movie, instead of instead of solve and promise you that it will solve it or that this is the first and last case of the Warren, but really it is many of the things that were set up in this prologue are solved through the dialogue of the characters, which is a cheap way of solving it, and other times it's not even solved at all. So I just want to know what the demon looked like and why it wanted the Warren's kid, and I have so many questions that the movie didn't answer. And also certain events and characters from the movie are disconnected from each other. Most of the characters are inconsistent with previous iterations of themselves, so it is quite it's not that great in that aspect. Also, another thing that I believe that this movie works in the intertextuality, like how it connects with other movies, is that it tries to replicate with, in a very clear way, to replicate the movie The Shining. There are some scenes that remind me a lot of The Shining, as well as other scenes that remind me a lot of, or that the imagery remind me of The Exorcist, but here it is less effective, less striking, and it's empty reference that are not even well achieved. But it's cool reference, I guess, and also it tries to replicate James Wan's style of directing, and it fails. Like, it is clear that James Wan, and I can't really blame Michael Chavez, James Wan is one of the most visually striking directors in the industry today, and has been for the last 20 years, and he has directed a lot of movies, and he has a lot of experience, and clearly it's really hard to be at his level, and clearly Michael Chavez is not at this. So it is like it is like an amateur trying to pull off the tricks of a professional, and it shows. In regards to the ideology that this movie presents, this movie says that these cases are real. It has been proved that the movie says, at least, that many scientists have proved or believe to have proved that the Warrens were scammers and a hoax, and the movie wants to present it as if this was something that really happened, and I don't know if the filmmakers really believe this or not, but it works that, at least in the context of this movie, this is treated as something that really happens and makes this feel more gravitas and with more impact. Also, well, the ending is really, they defeat the mirror by pushing it, which is not really satisfactory, and always in the previous movies there has been a gimmick on how to defeat the demon. Like in the first one is an exorcist, in the second one they explicitly need to know the name of the demon, and on the third it is a wish. They have to break the altar, which they don't know where it is, and here they just have to push a mirror together, and the mirror is pushing against them, so it is not really that satisfactory, and it feels easy because the portion of the movie where the Warrens are really facing the demon is just the last part of the movie, and so the movie has already to run it and close it up, so it feels like they defeat it quite easily in comparison with other movies where the whole runtime they are trying things to do it and failing. And also, there's an epilogue in which the daughter gets married, and Lorraine tells Ed how their life is going to turn out, and it is a heart-filling moment, which is undercut by she talking a lot, and the movie kind of shows you this in scenes that really don't gel with each other, and it tries to make this a closing thing by presenting the actresses who played characters in the previous movies, who played other haunted families in previous movies from the Perron's case, which is... And also James Wan has a cameo, I'm sure he was James Wan, during the wedding, so this makes it feel like it is a desperate attempt, I will say, to kind of close this and say that, oh yes, everything we built was leading to this moment and everyone is here, and to make a kind of end game type of closing, but it really feels cheap, gratuitous, and out of nowhere, that even when I, as a fan of these movies and I really like how it is turning out, and I really like how these cameos and have me pointing like DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at the screen. It is a gimmick and an empty one, and so it could have been handled much better. And also this and also, well, everything at this end feels rushed and not deserving, but I believe that what makes this ridiculous mirror threat a little more compelling is that there's a post-credit, not a scene, it's just a picture with some text in it, that it explains that this mirror was used to conjure a spirit, so it is the Conjuring mirror, so it ties very neatly to the name of the saga, which was not quite ever explained, so it makes sense they chose this to be the closing of the saga, but it is after the credits roll, so there was no one but me to see it. And so if you have this cool idea that it is going to be that makes much sense of the more controversial decisions that you made about your villain, at least show it on the movie, not just as an Easter egg for the ones who don't have a life and aren't having to go to the bathroom because it is a longer movie. I believe it's almost 2 hours long, which is the longest movie in the saga. And so that was kind of like helps it a little, but why it is until the end. And so, in conclusion, is the least scary of the saga. It's not scary enough. It's based on easy and ineffective, not tension-built jump scares. James Wan perfected the scare jump as this tension where you see the monster and you have to confront the monster before it scares you, and this builds tension, and this is something that this movie doesn't do, and not really create tension, and the scenes mainly which feels more harsh in the third act, or more frequent in the third act, because it's where the characters are already having something to do. They end quickly. There is not really some resolution to most of the things that happen, and it is not satisfactory the way these scenes turn out. And there are a lot of things that the movie promises you or that the movie presents that never return, and it's just like, then why do you present me this? Why you promise me a demon and there will never be this demon? I never see that demon, and this demon never appeared as itself more than just the mirror. Also, the haunted family is not as developed as in other movies, so it is the of the three movies is the one where you care the least for the family who is being tormented. And I believe that even with all of that, the movie manages to be very enjoyable and to have you invested in it because of Aaron and Warren, which are the characters that you already care, but they work because of the previous movies, not because of this movie. So it is kind of I will give more deserving of that to the previous movies than this one, but nonetheless, having watched the other one, this makes this one work, at least in that regard. And at the end, it is a very weak ending. It is full with empty references, and it is trying to make this feel like a conclusion to a saga or to a pair of characters, but everything felt so easy that it wasn't satisfactory, and it was gratuitous and felt like a cheap way of the movie to achieve and to get to get a false sense of big ending. And so it was in general a pretty disappointing experience. But thank you for listening, and if you would like to support me, please take a look at Give Me a Hand, my short story about a mercenary who has the power to attach dead limbs to his body, and he uses them as its own, and he gets in an occult war where he has to fight his own hand in order to prevail his identity. It was a selected finalist in the Gore short story contest of the editorial Nueva Bestia editorial. So you can purchase it on Amazon, both in English and Spanish, or you can get it for free by subscribing to my newsletter. All the description or the links are on the description below. And until next time, keep enjoying the movies.